Yeah, another video to a silly person. Yes, wayward. Wayward. It's a good name. You just can't figure out where you're going ever, right? You're just going to keep talking from a vacillating position. Yeah, sorry. There's a logical dissident problem with that in and of itself. If you don't know what you're talking about, you probably shouldn't be talking about it publicly. Anyway, alright, so he's making the argument here that, there's something about life. He apparently has rescued some suicidal person from their suicide, which means, yes, he's saved their life so they can die at some future day of some more horrible thing than their depression. Some other train wreck can take them out. And maybe they can cause some train wrecks along the way, as they go. But maybe it's such a great human being that he saved that they'll do something beneficial to the world, and so that he can feel good about that because they'll do something decent. Yes, and there's lots of decent things to do in this world, messed up as it is. But it's his opinion, okay, this guy's opinion, that there's something to do here, okay, that if there wasn't horror and awful stuff happening, that somehow there would be something good to do without fixing the horror. So first he thinks there's actually good to do that has something to do with something not crass or fixing something that isn't broken. That the fun is going to be achievable. You're going to have the lottery winners without the lottery losers. That he's going to create some kind of system where everybody wins. And this is somehow a real possibility. It's just right there, so close that we might as well talk about it like it's realistically possible. And of course, he doesn't include animals in this at all, so they're totally, fuck them. Okay, they're for our service. The beasts are for our dominion over them and to enslave them to our functions and purposes. Because he certainly has no cure for the biological, snarly meat grinder that he's living on. And he can't even control, for his values, as he calls them, he couldn't even control his consumption of, meat matter. But he thinks the world can be changed so substantially as to make it purposeful to inject a baby organism that's just going to be incited to have ambitions, to play some game to satisfy those ambitions, and somehow the game isn't going to have any hard competition in it. Somehow all the competition is going to be somehow constructive, where everybody everybody improves each other through the mechanism of the competition. And we all get our gratification and our little alpha moments and all this kind of bullshit, and we all get our little badges and we all get to fuck the bitch, so to speak. Just totally delusionary, totally has nothing to do with reality. And but yeah, we should somehow keep hope alive, and I guess to manage that keeping hope alive, somebody's going to have some more kids to do it, because he's not really going to give us anything like a 10-year plan, is he? Like, okay, let's just not have kids for 10 years, make the world really, really great, and then have kids. I mean, that's not what he's suggesting. So anyway, let's play some of this slop. I mean, it is just wishy-washy, mishy-mushy slop. I mean, there's nothing here.
I have maintained for a while now that non-existence is always preferable to existence. But after what happened, I'm not so sure anymore.
So, because he saw some depressed person get undepressed, I suspect, they must have gotten undepressed. I wonder through modern chemistry. I wonder what the magic was. But anyway, he's just not sure. So, okay, the critical question was answered by anecdotal, personal encounter with one humanoid, and that has now validated for him this whole life process somehow now makes so much more sense. Yes, the depressed person became remotivated to play a silly, stupid game. That's changed his perspective. Dun, 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 dun.
And I've been thinking that, you know, if you could make one person's life worth living, why couldn't you make everyone's life worth living? Why?
Well, what does worth living mean? That means you have to have some sort of ambition coherent to the world that exists. Correct? I mean, for it to be worth living, you know, you have to have some sort of goal. All right? And again, if the goal isn't to clean up something, the goal isn't to save people from drowning, then what good goal are you talking about? What kind of thing is there to feel good about doing in this world? What, bungee jumping? Disneyland? What's the good you're talking about that is just such a great deal of marvelous fun that makes it all worthwhile?
Couldn't you create a system in which we could say that bringing someone into existence was a positive?
Yeah, again, a positive how? So we've eliminated the sadness and the blight and the pain and the suffering that, you know, is the negative part. So they're going to come into the world without a negative to fix, without a need to comfort some other person's need. And all there's going to be is some sort of, like, no desperate need inside of themselves, just a little bit hungry. So they're just going to come into the world to graze on something and go yum yum. There would be something worthwhile in creating something that can feed on this meal. The meal of create an unnecessary need and satisfy it. That somehow is now an act of productivity. That's a good thing to do, is to create something that needs something, and then it can go graze on it.
And I believed it to be impossible, but honestly now...
I believed it to be impossible. I guess as we said, believed. So now he doesn't believe it's impossible. He believes it's somewhere in some other realm, like it somehow has dramatically moved from one place to another, like a significant enough movement to change the answer from yes to no.
I'm not so sure. I still don't think having kids is a good idea.
I don't think having kids is a good idea. But it's a good idea if the world is made perfect. Why is it a good idea then? I mean, clearly it doesn't have the downside problem. But what's the upside realistically? For what? To do what? Oh, never mind.
At least not for most of us. Especially with the state of the world and the condition in which we find ourselves in now. I mean...
yeah, so why is it even relevant to have a conversation about what we should do in a perfect world that we have? You have said that it's gone from zero hope to some kind of hope that we can get there. Okay. I mean, how realistic is the hope? 1 in 10? I mean, can you give me a probability number? But it's okay to modify the point from don't have kids to it's not a good idea to have kids. So you can change that sentence because the hope has changed so dramatically that it merits changing the sentence from it's a bad idea to have kids to I don't think it's a good idea to have kids. Yeah, it's worth that change in the modifiers, huh?
Controversial Philosophy actually made a video the other day in which he talked about the pathology of modern life and how, you know, we have basically come to accept a system that oppresses us and often exacerbates human suffering.
Yeah, well, sadly, one of the things that makes the suffering the worst is the actual act of prolonging our existence. So, in most cases, in like a substantial number of cases, you can find the liability. The biggest liability is the fact that we can survive the disability and the debility, and we can create crutches to walk on, you know, to get past these depressions or this or that. We have these crutches, and these crutches will fail, and you'll be back on the ground. So we spend a lot of time in less than perfect, but just walking the walk. Not living the life that you're talking about, but just surviving the life. And that's somebody puts a check mark like that. Yeah, that's a win. He's still standing, therefore it's a win. When no, he's still standing because he's full of frickin' chemistry and being held up by stilts.
Because we've become too complacent. We have allowed ourselves to accept the system because we're too focused on fulfilling our own sort of selfish, hedonistic desires.
Yeah, and I think it's because people are a little too distracted by absolute nonsense. Like, somebody asks a question about a dead celebrity, and people think it's somehow offensive, and they get all wetty in the panty over it. Yeah.
Opposed to taking a stand.
And your stand is that life be good, that somehow we're just doing it wrong, and that there's a right way to do it. And it's not that hard to do it the right way. I'm sure it isn't that hard. And fuck the animals. So that's your philosophy. Okay, got it.
So no, I don't think having kids is a good idea. However...
Yeah, whatever that means. I don't think having kids is a good idea. However, I think life is worth living if we do it right. A little bit of a conflict in those two statements, I'm afraid.
I think it's entirely possible to create a system in which having kids would be acceptable.
Acceptable. So again, acceptable, why? Because there would be a purpose to it. Because it would actually be okay to risk somebody to say, we're going to make you play silly game. The game is you need gumball. You chase gumball. You go, ha 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 ha, I caught gumball. Yeah, sorry. Leave me out, thank you. Is there some way I can get an exemption? Really? Pass. Don't play with me. You can play with yourselves, buddy. But yeah, leave me and my wiener out of the game.
That is to say, I think we could create a world in which we could have people who could lead happy, fulfilling lives.
And somehow you'll get rid of all the tortured victims. The victims who get tortured or have lives that aren't fulfilling and end in colossal tragic horror. So it's Magic Land again. We could have a Magic Land made of gingerbread, where Little Red Riding Hood and Goldilocks and the Three Bears all play card games together. Yay!
I mean, we're the most intelligent beings on this planet. If it wasn't...
Yeah, which isn't much of a competition, right? I mean, realistically, it's not, intelligence isn't one of the things you get rewarded for on this planet.
Wasn't for the fact that we're mired by all of this bullshit,
Yeah, like the bullshit of consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, addiction. Mired by the bullshit of addiction, of a natural psychology that has built intrinsically into it a competitive takers mentality.
Personal vendettas and bigotries and hatred.
Yeah, that's just, again, all part of the biological function, and if you extract that stuff, not saying it wouldn't be worth extracting, you have neutered the game, and it becomes a silly Teletubby world. La la la, porridge, and which I would almost argue is more humiliating.
We really could come together and create a system that could allow for such a thing. And if it turns...
yeah, again, vague, bold talk for a silly, scarfed, skinny guy. You got to come up with a little more than that. Exactly what this utopia look like? Is this another promise of a heaven where you just sit around and wait to go, you know what? Tell Jesus how super and special he is. Oh yeah, I'm gonna, you know, all the fun rides in heaven. The stand in the line to go tell Jesus how cool he is, and then the stand in line to go, I don't know, play patty cake with some kids or something line. What are all the fun games in heaven? I want. What's the fun game in your utopia?
Turns out that, you know, things are only going to get worse, and, you know, we're basically just going to drive ourselves deeper and deeper into hell until we eventually burn alive. Then yeah, give me the red button and I'll press it my fucking self.
Right. You know, so you don't think that's going to be the inevitable outcome. Okay, so it's not, the evidence isn't decisively pointed in the direction of humans are violent motherfuckers and they're going to make a colossal mess with technology of each other's corpses. So there's not enough evidence for you that that's exactly the road the human race is walking on, and it's going nowhere near your golden city on a hill road. It's not even seeing that road. And that road's not, obviously isn't paved or anything. It's dirt and gnarly, requires all kinds of sacrifice, like where people actually have to get double taxed now for their kids, that they somehow have to pay their debt, you know, so the kids aren't even born into debt. I mean, they're so distant from that world you're describing. But, you know, can't do anything, right? We must suspend judgment because there's some possibility that's where the human race is going to end up. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think, you know, I mean, I'm just trying to think of some free willy kind of way, some way I could do the test and say, look, you could run this permutation 1,000,000 times or 1,000,000,000 times, and you're never going to play this game and get the human beings down here up there.
But as long as the possibility exists to create a future in which life is worth living, I think it's something that's absolutely worth striving for.
Okay, well, I think it's absolutely worth striving for exactly the opposite, which is a humble recognition that it's too messy to be playing with. We're not qualified to be playing with it. It's dangerous, dangerous, dangerous written all over it. There's victim, victim, victim written all over this gunplay you want to play, and that the sensible thing to do is to strive for that long shot than your long shot. So, yeah, we don't agree. That's pretty clear.
And I don't think that extinction has to be our only salvation.
Again, you're going to have to give me some sort of more clear vision thing. You're going to have to do the description of your utopia again. What exactly, how exactly are these human beings going to be constructed, and what exactly is going to make them interested? They're all going to be happy to screw the ugly girl? Yeah, well, they'll share and share alike. What? Oh, come on. They're all going to like each other's scarves?
I think that we can create our own salvation. And
our own salvation. Well, yeah, maybe as individuals. Yeah, but you're not going to do it as a kind. And you're certainly not going to do it as a species when you're dependent on all those other animals being turned into elemental particles so you can survive by inhaling their corpses.
No matter how unlikely it may seem, if it's possible, it's worth striving for.
Okay, says the wayward. It's worth striving for. In what exact way do we strive for it that's any different than the way it's always been strived for, and why is it in the context of anti-natalism? So apparently it's more sensible to strive for that shiny city on the hill than to strive for preventing the creation of these completely unnecessary babies. So it makes much more sense to try to build the city on the hill than it makes to throw bricks at the pregos. Yeah, sorry. As a practical matter, I think there's about 10 million times more potential to win by stopping the creation of the problem than creating your utopia, which you haven't described, and I don't think you have a hope in hell of describing rationally.
Anyway, I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this.
Yes, and you well-deserved, I would imagine. So please, somebody else shit on him. But whatever, it just doesn't, it really doesn't matter, wishy-washy man. So, I mean, the good news is I actually banned him yesterday from my channel because of this stupid, whatever, skeptical heretic shit. He's actually making more rationalization defenses in my comment section. I'm like, what the fuck? I just made a 12-minute video on a stupid, idiotic, inane subject that should never exist in the first place, and you're going to waste my time with another comment? Holy fuck. So yes, whatever. Dream on and, pretend to prosper. But you won't win in the end, buddy. Trust me. So good luck with that. Yeah, good luck with that. Eyes do roll often on planets of the simpletons. I'm Scarf Boy. Scarf Boy to the rescue. Do, 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 do. Or something like that. Till next time.